Hey everyone, I'm a little early, so just sitting here waiting for you all to join. We'll get started shortly after noon. I'm looking forward to chatting with you today. My name's Kris Sollid. I'm a registered dietitian at the International Food Information Council, Senior Director of Nutrition Communications there. I know we're just at noon now, so some will be joining shortly. So we'll just wait a few minutes before I get into too much detail. But today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my career path as a second career dietitian, some of the work we do at IFIC, which is also known as Food Insight on our social channels. A lot of it's a lot of fun and creative and interesting, so I hope to share that with you. I hope you guys have some questions for me. I'd be happy to answer those about me, my career path, our organization, the work we do, how we can connect. That's one of the main things I like to do in my role, connecting with other health professionals, helping you all with resources and other things that can help you do your job more effectively in terms of communicating nutrition science. I see a few people are joining, so happy to see you here. Going to get started soon. I won't hold you up too much. I know we have till about 12:30, and I'd love to have a conversation with you more than a presentation. And hey, Linda, I see you there. Thanks for letting me know you're there. If others are online and could let me know you're here as well, that'd be great. Ask questions, anything related to the field or what I do, what you do for that matter, and how we could collaborate or connect and support one another. I think that's the mission of Build Up. That's one of the missions of my organization at IFIC, and that's one of the roles that I enjoy the most. Hey, Amy, thanks for joining and let me know you're there. I'm Kris Sollid. We'll go ahead and get started. I'm Kris Sollid. I'm a registered dietitian at the International Food Information Council, otherwise known as IFIC. You can follow us on a number of social channels. We are active on Facebook, we're active on Twitter, we're active on LinkedIn, and also Instagram. So follow us at Food Insight, which also happens to be our website address, foodinsight.org. So you can find out a lot more about us there online. Follow us on all of our social channels, and that's where you'll get a lot of the newest stuff we're putting out every day. I think that's the best way to follow us. That's the best way to keep in touch with what we're doing. So appreciate you guys following us on all of our social channels. You can follow me personally on Twitter. My handle is at SCRD in DC. Some people might confuse that with being scared in DC, and while politics is a scary subject, I'm not scared. It actually stands for South Carolina RD in DC. That's where I did my internship, down at the Medical University of South Carolina. So that's when I joined Twitter, and I've actually been contemplating changing that handle. I don't know if any of you all out there have experience in changing a social handle. I'd love tips for how to do that the most effectively, or I can just leave it. I don't know. I've kicked that idea around too. So just to get started, a little bit about my organization. The International Food Information Council is a member association. We're funded by food, beverage, and agriculture companies. So we are a member or an industry-supported group. I know there's a lot of tension about that in the field, and others have perspectives on that too. But I really enjoy what I do. I enjoy working with the member scientists of our companies that support us. And our mission is to communicate nutrition science. So we don't promote brands of our member companies. We don't, mention them in any way. That's not our mission. That's not our goal. We don't lobby. We're located in DC, but we don't lobby. We don't take policy positions other than to say that we support the science that might support some decisions that are impacted in policy. So that's just a little bit about the background of my organization, IFIC, but I'd like to start with talking a little bit about me and my career path as a second career dietitian, I love, hearing other people's stories that are in the field, whether they just started right out of college or right out of their internship, or whether they're a second or even third career dietitian. I just love hearing why people are interested in the field of nutrition, how they got their start, what sparked that love and that passion that we all have for nutrition and nutrition science and food and good health. I was fortunate in my early years to be in a household that my upbringing was very health focused. We spent a lot of time playing sports, being active in sports. I was encouraged to play all sports. I was big in soccer and baseball. Those were my two passions, and really understood the connection between performance in those sports and the fuel that we give our bodies, the food that we eat every day. My parents were really focused on getting us the healthiest food we could. Growing up in California, we were fortunate in the fact that we had access to year-round produce and had financial means to support those goals of ours as a family. So I look back on that time and I feel really lucky and fortunate in so many ways. But it didn't really dawn on me till later, much later in life, like what this feeling I had about the connection between activity and food. And it's funny because I moved around the country quite a bit, going to school at the University of Colorado Boulder, later moving to the East Coast. And everywhere I went, it's like, and this is before I was in the field, this is before I was in nutrition. Everywhere I went, people seemed to be too interested in the food choices I made, eating out at restaurants or at parties. And it's like there was this focus on my plate for some reason and not the food that they were actually consuming themselves. I just kept thinking about that throughout my life. And is it like, were my food choices really that healthy? Or was it that other people's just weren't as healthy? Or were they just interested in the fact that I was eating vegetables, and as a man, vegetables, I think not in today's necessary age, but like maybe once upon a time that was not considered masculine enough. You got to eat meat, you should be eating this, you should be eating that. And so it was just something that dawned on me. It's like a light bulb went off later in life, and I started reflecting back on my childhood and my upbringing. And I had a shift in careers. I was working in hospitality. I was at the time working on golf courses, but I had also worked in hotels and other areas not connected to nutrition. And just, I don't know if you call it a midlife crisis or an epiphany, but I just decided that this was going to be the path I was going to take. And I went back to school and got a second degree in nutrition and food science at the University of Maryland. Go Terps. And it just really changed my life. And I think connecting back to those early days and what was important to my family and what was important to me and what really molded me into the person I am, I just realized that food and physical activity was such a huge part of that. And so as a second career dietitian, it was difficult, going back to school when you're 30. I was surrounded by others that were in their 20s. Maybe a lot of you can relate. I'd love to hear your stories or your questions about that, how we could support other second career dietitians that are contemplating getting into our field. I encourage that, of course. And so if you're on the fence and you're thinking about that, reach out to me. I'd love to help you in any way that I can. And going into my internship was the same story, being 10 years older than most people, and eventually landing where I am today at IFIC. Just really feel fortunate about that. And one of the things that I do now at IFIC is mentor other emerging nutrition communicators and other dietitians we take on interns from time to time at IFIC. And one of the biggest things I always tell people in their rotations is think about your rotation as a job interview. You get 2 to 3 weeks or whatever the length of the rotation happens to be to impress this potentially future employer, right? You can show them your skills. You really get 3 weeks and not 30 minutes to apply for this job. And if you want that job and if you're passionate about that job, you can showcase your skills in ways that, a 30-minute interview don't allow. So I really impress that upon the interns we take in at IFIC to show me what you got, and do it in a way that shows your personality, that shows your passion, that shows your creativity, and obviously showcases your knowledge. So yeah, I really encourage interns to think about the field in different ways rather than just the clinical mindset. That's something that I felt in my second career path, that they really, the field is really focused on clinical. There's not a lot of exposure to other fields within nutrition. And I think that's really important to let early students, early dietitians know that there are other paths out there. I think clinical is wonderful. I enjoy many of my rotations. I know many clinical dietitians, the work they do is so important. But not all of us are geared that way and built for that field, but we want to be involved in other ways. So there's communications, which the field I'm in, and I'll get into that, what we do at IFIC, and so many other parts of nutrition. You can get into policy, you can get into community outreach, you can get into one-on-one counseling, just so many things I think that we could be bringing at the student level that are important to give them exposure, because oftentimes you can feel plugged into a corner. And I know I felt this way at some point, getting a few years in and then thinking like, I don't know if I signed up for this. I'm not sure this was the path that I would have taken had I known this was the only option. Fortunately there are more options, but I ran across IFIC during my internship and took a rotation there for about 3 weeks and realized, this is the kind of setting that I always envisioned myself in. So if you're an educator out there, or a dietetic internship director, or an educator at a university, let them know that there's other things that they can be doing beyond just clinical. I wouldn't suppress that passion for clinical, but just giving them that exposure to other fields within our field is really important. And I'd be happy to help if you wanted to connect with me in ways to share my experience and give them exposure to the communications world. So I told you a little bit about IFIC, who we are and who funds us. And I wanted to just let you know that, any questions you have while I'm going on, I'm happy to stop and address those. But I'll just keep going until I see those, or until I read those in the chat box. You can see that down in the lower right side of your screen there. Feel free to type those in. I'm watching, so can address any things that come up, because I'll go through a few things that we're doing at IFIC that might jar some questions from you. And I should just say too that please feel free to bring any topics that you think IFIC could be helpful to your career in. We create resources and all kinds of other things on various topics, and I know they're valuable to health professionals. At least we try to make them valuable to other health professionals. So if there are emerging topics that you're getting questions from your clients, or in your job roles, bring them to my attention. I'd love to connect with you and think about ways we can help address those in through our resource. And I should say that also everything that we do in terms of our resource development is available online on our website, foodinsight.org. So everything we produce is open to the public and accessible, including our consumer research, which is probably what most of you all know us for, I'm guessing, but our foundation conducts consumer research on a variety of topics. I know that I've seen many of you use them at professional conferences like FNCE and American Society for Nutrition. We really appreciate you guys sharing our data. We love when our data is shared. That's part of the reason why we do it, is to get this information out there to people who can use it, academics, health professionals, trying to assess the consumer perspective on a lot of these complicated issues around nutrition and health. So we do an annual survey. It's called the Food and Health Survey. 2019 was the 14th annual, and next year will be the 15th annual. I've been around at IFIC for about 10 years, so I've seen a number of these, and it's really exciting to see the different topics and understand the consumer perspective on those as they've shifted over the years. I'll get into maybe a little bit of how we use that data, but just wanted to open that up for you and for questions in case you had any emerging topics that you think maybe our consumer research could address if you see a gap in some of our consumer research projects. I just wanted to say one thing about the way we conduct our research. We don't necessarily do it all in-house. We work with third-party vendors. All of our research is done through third-party vendors who have access to online panels, consumer panels, that people opt into. All of our research is reflective of the U.S. population, so we think we have a good sense of, its meaning across our population. Only in the U.S. do we conduct research, so we only conduct that among the American population. Sorry, my voice is breaking up a little bit here. So that's important to point out. We're just looking at Americans, of those who have online access and have opted into taking surveys such as this. And the vendors we work with, they are the ones that actually collect the data and they analyze the data. And we do that for a bunch of reasons. Primarily probably is to remove ourselves and our bias, our potential bias from that data. So knowing that we're an industry supported organization, we want to make sure that the experts are collecting that data, the experts are analyzing that data, and they're reporting it to us, and we do a lot of work with them in terms of synthesizing it, understanding it, so that we can share it in the best way, the most accurate and least biased way. So it's really fun to work with these vendors. These are professionals in their field just as much as we're professionals in our field, and it's shared out in a number of ways. We do a lot of presenting at professional meetings. I mentioned FNC and other conferences. We get a lot of invitations from federal agencies to share our data when a topic might be relevant to them in a policy decision they're considering. They want the consumer perspective. We're always happy to be a resource to them. That's one of the main reasons why we do consumer research, so that information or policy decisions can be based on science-based, accurate information, and also taking in the consumer perspectives. You know, when we're thinking about things like the Nutrition Facts Panel, which is the interface that consumers use when they're making decisions about food, we want to make sure that that information, and so do the federal agencies, want to make sure that that information is the most relatable and most understandable it can possibly be to consumers. And the way to do that is to test it with consumers, to go back and forth and figure out what kind of language and what kind of presentation and what kind of information is the most understandable. I can give you a few examples of that. We've actually done some work on the Nutrition Facts label a few years ago when FDA was considering modifying it. Now it's, the final rule's been issued and it's going to be mandatory in 2020. But at the time, they were considering all different kinds of formats and including different things on the label, including a line for added sugars. And one way in which we were supportive of the FDA was in helping support their decision to change the sugars line to total sugars. Our research had found that simple change, just putting total in front of the word sugars, helped consumers understand the fact that added sugars were a subset of total sugars, and that total sugars conveyed everything that was in that product in terms of the grams of sugar. There was some confusion around how to interpret those two lines, but we're really happy that that turned out that way, and we could be supportive of the FDA in that decision. We've also done some recent work on the BE labeling disclosure, the GMO labeling disclosure. We worked with USDA in consultation to help them test some of the potential visuals they were thinking about. And so they've recently come to a final decision about which label that is and the text that's going to be surrounding that logo. So it's really fun and interesting to do timely work like that we know consumers are going to be seeing in the future, and getting their perspective before those things become final is really important to us and also to the federal government. I'll just give a quick promo of some research we do have coming out next month. You should be seeing a project of ours related to food waste and environmental sustainability. So we've got 2 consumer projects you can look for release in September. We're excited about those, and actually they'll be put out in conjunction with an event we're putting on in New York City called The Future of Food. So if any of you have seen our promotions of that event, we'd love to have you there. You can register online. We've got a website. The website is eatingwellifixsummit.com. We're actually putting it on in co-hosting it with Eating Well magazine, so we're really excited about that. It's all about the future of food and innovations that are happening in the food space to improve health. So it's a really exciting one-day conference we've got going on. So if you happen to be in the New York City area on September 18th, join us. We'd love to have you. I mentioned earlier, there's lots of applications for our research, and one of the things we do internally with our research is looking at ways that it can help inform some of the projects we do. And one example of that is with medical professionals, particularly doctors. Some of our research had shown over the years that dietitians are trusted among consumers. They're a highly trusted source, but they're a low frequency source of information. Not a lot of people go to dietitians, but yet they're very trusted. Doctors, on the other hand, many people visit doctors. They're also very trusted when it comes to food and health information. So we know that from our own consumer research. And we also know that doctors don't get hardly any nutrition education, no training in nutrition and nutrition science. So we thought that was a great opportunity to dive into helping educate doctors on nutrition. There's a group called Osmosis that you can go online and see them at osmosis.org. They're awesome. They do a lot of cool stuff in educating future doctors, future health professionals, pharmacists, and other health fields. And they do whiteboard videos, not only whiteboard videos, but one of the things that they do that are really fun are educational whiteboard videos. They have a YouTube channel where they're viewed, and they had no nutrition content before we started looking at our data and started looking into working with doctors and educating doctors. And we've produced 6 videos with a 7th video coming online soon. You can go on our website and you can go on Osmosis website and see those. We've got one on carbohydrates and sugars. We've got one on protein. We've got one on fats. We have one on gut health, hydration, and I think that's it right now. But they're really cool videos. They're like 8 to 10 minutes, and they're those whiteboard drawing, illustrated videos showing some biochemistry and metabolism, and then really bringing it down into food. So helping doctors and those that are studying to become doctors understand what we know in our field and what we know is important in our field. So I think that's I like to bring up that example as one way in which we use our consumer research. We develop a lot of consumer and health professional resources. That's another way we use our consumer research. We think that our research can help us identify gaps in knowledge among the public. So we can help fill those gaps with resources like fact sheets, infographics, other creatives that you may have seen on our social channels or on our website. Again, those are all free for you to use. We encourage you to use them with your patients, with your clients if they're helpful. Also for yourself, to educate yourself on maybe topics you're not up to speed on. We just published an update to our fiber fact sheet, for example, and that is geared toward health professionals. That's a very deep, intensive document where we've looked at all of the things that are new in the research world, in the published literature. FDA has recently come to update their definition of fiber, so they've included fibers that are known to have benefits and physiological functions for humans. So that's new and exciting. So that's something we felt was really important to update. So I'd like to bring your attention to that if you work in the field where fiber is of importance to you, or if you just want to educate yourself. Check out that resource. We've got one coming on whole grains, similarly updated. We've got a series on low-calorie sweeteners, which we know is a topic that's well misunderstood among the public, and also, unfortunately, among some dietitians and other health professionals. So we've got 4 fact sheets that are brand new with the most current literature on the subject, including safety and efficacy for weight loss and weight management. So look for those. We've got one on aspartame, sucralose, stevia, monk fruit, and those are all brand new with updated resources, I think, as late as published literature in 2018. You also might be familiar with us for some of the rapid response we do. We have a platform on our website called Fast Take. So a lot of media attention is given to research studies, and headlines are made. Consumers are reading about topics, maybe even low-calorie sweeteners, or sugary drinks, or cancer and other connections to food. And these research studies tend to get a lot of media pickup. And we know that other health professionals like yourselves don't have a lot of time to read these studies once they're published. You may be getting questions about them from some of your clients or family before you even had a chance to read the paper, but they've read the news article about it. So we produce these articles that synthesize those papers as quickly as we can, usually within about 24 to 36 hours. We publish them to our website, and we hope that they're helpful for you to read them. We include links to the papers, links to all kinds of other resources that'll help you digest this information as quickly as possible, because we know that oftentimes the consumers are ahead of us when it comes to these kinds of things. What they hear and read in the media can really influence their opinion. And oftentimes, I like to say that oftentimes there's an inverse correlation between the quality of a research study and the amount of media attention that it gets. That's kind of unfortunate. It's a very general statement, but it's just something to put into perspective. What makes headlines? It's not often the best science that makes headlines. It's the most sensational, and it's the most those kinds of studies that might strike fear into people. And whether or not the research was done well or not is irrelevant. It's more about communicating out to you and the consumers about what this really means for them, and does it warrant change in the way we think about nutrition science or the way people think about the food choices that they make. So I encourage you to look for those. They're called Fast Takes. We publish them on our website, foodinsight.org, along with other timely blogs on topics. So if anytime you want to bring something to our attention, whether it's a research study or whether it's just an emerging topic that you think we should be looking at, let us know. Give us a shout out on social. You can email me, sollid@ific.org. Happy to address all of those, for you. I'm just scrolling through some of your comments and questions here. Sorry, I was a little bit late getting to some of those. So we do have a former internship director, so hopefully any of my comments were helpful and can be in the future. Yeah, and related to internships, there are internship opportunities at IFIC. We have an annual fellowship called the Sylvia Rowe Fellow, and that's open to graduate students in advanced degree programs, or anyone who has graduated from an advanced degree program in the last 12 months. We have our 2019 fellow coming on board this fall, and they spend about up to 12 weeks with us in the office, learning about what we do to become a more effective nutrition communicator. So I encourage you, if you're an educator, or if you're a dietetic internship director, or you're affiliated with a university, or you even know someone who's in a program, an advanced program at a university, let them know. You can apply on our website at foodinsight.org. We have a tab there. Just search Sylvia Rowe Fellowship. It is a paid fellowship. A small stipend is given to the fellow every year. So if that's something that gets people over the edge for applying, please do that. We love working with the emerging leaders in our field. And again, that's called the Sylvia Rowe Fellowship. So please share that if you can. One of the other things I'd like to mention too is if you're in the media, maybe you may write articles for certain outlets. We're a resource for you at IFIC as well. We have a number of other dietitians and PhDs on staff in the fields related to nutrition and health. So anytime you wanted to reach out to us for resources or other information, please do. We can also connect you with academics in the field. That's another role we serve. We convene journalists with academics who actually do the research on the topics that they're writing about. We think that's really important to get information straight from the horse's mouth. We just want to be a facilitator in that conversation. We don't want to censor that conversation. We just want to make sure that the journalists are getting in touch with the people that conduct the research, so there's no misinterpretation of what their research says, or what the meaning of it might be. So we think that that's an important role. So hopefully, if any of you are on this and you're in the media, or you write for outlets and you want to be connected to some academic experts, we have a lot of connections in the field, and we can help you do that. I'm getting near the end here, and I just wanted to remind you all about a couple things. We're a resource, but there's also other resources that I like to encourage people to look out for. One of them comes from the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and Indiana University. It's called the Obesity and Energetics Offerings. It's a weekly newsletter. They put out an awesome newsletter every week that rounds up the latest in nutrition and health science, a lot of the publications that we all probably miss because we're busy. They focus on what's been published and they let us know about it. They also do a pretty cool thing. They look at headlines and studies and how they're disconnected oftentimes. So that's the lead of their newsletter. So every time I give a talk, I like to encourage people to sign up for that. I think it's a great way to be connected to what's happening there in the literature. I think that's probably one of the things I love most about working at IFIC is it really enables me to be on top of the latest publications in the field and also the connection with the media. So what's being published and in the literature, but also what's being published that consumers have their eyes on. So it's really fun to keep up with that. There's also a group called Con Science Health. I think that's how you pronounce it. They focus on consumer science and health. And they work with experts and organizations to advance approaches to health and obesity. They do a daily blog where they weigh in on some of the same topics we might be weighing in on about, the big nutrition news of the day. So check them out. I know, follow them on Twitter or check out their website. They're always a great resource for what's happening in the field. As far as government resources, there's actually something related similar to what we do that the UK supports. United Kingdom's National Health Service does a daily breakdown of the latest health science of news making headlines. So it's similar to our Fast Take platform in some ways, but only it's government supported, which I think is really cool. I wonder if our government would ever consider doing something like that to help people understand, the impact and the, what some of these studies actually mean, because oftentimes they may drive behaviors and other health choices that aren't necessarily in line with what the consensus literature might say about a certain topic. Well, before I sign off, just let you know again who I am. I'm Kris Sollid. I'm a registered dietitian at the International Food Information Council. Our website is foodinsight.org, and we do work that hopefully supports you all in your fields, developing resources and other creative materials that are geared for consumers, but also the health professionals. You can follow us on a number of social channels. We're active on Twitter, we're active on Facebook, we're active on Instagram, and also LinkedIn. And our handle is @foodinsight for all of those, just like our website, foodinsight.org. And you can also follow me on Twitter. I look forward to connecting with you all there. My handle is @SCRDindc. So look forward to continue that conversation there. And again, if you're in New York on September 18th in that area, we'd love to see you at our event, The Future of Food. So thanks all for your questions. I'll be monitoring the comments and other questions and following up on those if you have any. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you at Fancy in Philly this year. If you see me around, give me a shout. Love to meet you. Have a great day.